Thank you for listening to Discovery of the Scriptures with Dr. Peter John. Currently, we are in Daniel chapter 8, verse 10. Reading from the King James Bible, quote, "And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them." Let's go ahead and compare this to the Young's Literal Translation. Quote, "Yea, it exerteth upon the host of the heavens, and causes to fall to the earth of the host and of the stars, and trampled them down." Unquote. Now, let's take a look at this verse, and let's compare it to see if Daniel has used any words anyplace else so we can get an understanding of this verse. First, we're going to take a look at exceeding great. So, great. Did he use this anyplace else besides in this verse? In fact, he does. Remember that Daniel is written in Aramaic and Hebrew, so you need to look at the Hebrew. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to ignore Daniel 1:5 because it doesn't say great. It says nourishing them. So we're going to go down here to Daniel 8:4 where it is used as and became great. So it's a hyphio. It's a cause. And then again, he used it in Daniel 8:8, waxed very great. Daniel 8:10, and it waxed great. 11, yea, he magnified himself. So that's not hyphio. So we see magnification being used 3 times in Daniel, 4 times actually, and these other times the hyphio, he's and made great. So it's a causality. So we have that. Okay, the next word in here is host. Does Daniel use it the same in other places? And in fact, he does. In 8:11, 8:12, 8:13, only one time did he use it as appointed, that is host. So we have the same usage from him, so he means host. So I did a word-for-word study in this entire verse here. All the words in this verse were used at least 2 times, if not more, by Daniel, which is the first thing you want to do. What does Daniel mean when he uses this? Then you can compare it to other writers that are writing in Hebrew. I would try to look at the writers that were in the same time frame as Daniel, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. But I'm finding that everything here, and it waxed great to the host of heaven, and it cast down of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped. All of those he uses at least 2 to 5 times. All of them have the same meaning as what they have here, is plain as day. So the parsing out of this one, it's not going to be the wordage that we're going to be looking at. But let me read this to you so you can get this. And it cast down. Now I'm doing the interlinear raw. This is a verb, it's hyphio, so it's causative. Consecutive imperfect third person feminine single. And it cast down. So it caused things to be cast down. Of heaven, masculine plural, the host. Now that is a common, it's a noun. It's common singular construct. 2, that's a prep. And it grew up. Now this is a verb, it's quail, it's passive. So it passively grew up. Third person feminine. And trampled them. Again, same thing. Verb, quail, passively trampled them. Of the stars. Now that's a noun, masculine plural. And some, preposition, of the host, noun, common singular, some to the ground, feminine singular. So what's going on? Well, he cast down of the heaven the host, and it grew up and trampled them, the stars. But he's doing it all passively. Okay, let's look at this verse in context now before we look at the ancient commentaries. Reading the verse now in context, the paragraph is Daniel 8, verse 8, through Daniel 8, verse 12. Reading from the King James Bible, quote, "Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, towards the south, and towards the east, and towards the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host, and some of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of hosts, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Unquote. Okay, let's see what the ancient commentary John Gill has. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, the people of the Jews, the army of the living God, the church militant, among whom were many of the citizens of heaven, whose names are written there. Such was the insolence of this king, as to molest and disturb them. And it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, and stamped them, trampled on them. Some of the common people he persecuted and destroyed, or prevailed upon them, either by threats or flatteries, to relinquish their religion, and even some of the stars, the lights of the people, the priests and Levites, that ministered unto them, or the prince and elders of the people, whom he slew, as Jardish interprets it, and removed from their posts, so they could not do their office, or turned apostates. And those that did not, he barbarously put to death, and insulted over them, and used them in a very contemptuous manner, as old Eleazar, the mother and her 7 sons. See in the Apocrypha, 2 Maccabees, chapter 7. Now, that's the end of John Gill's commentary on this. My question is, when he cast down the host of heavens, the stars to the ground and stamped on them, stamped all over them, is he talking about now? Is he talking about before? Or is he talking about afterwards? What's he talking about? He's talking about afterwards. But remember, he's casually causing their fall. Is this done by ruining their holiness, their righteousness, their morale, by exposing them to the world and the media and TV and things to get them to no longer object to things that were wrong? For instance, are you hearing people swear on TV, whereas before you might have turned that station off or turned something else on that didn't use God's name while they're swearing? Or remember the time you first saw some seriously gross idolatry? Like, okay, the wife slept with her husband and now she's committed adultery with his dad. Seriously gross. So are you now accepting it because you've seen so much of it that you don't turn the TV off because it doesn't turn your stomach? Those are the things that I think is casually bringing the stars down and trampling on them. Your soul is getting vexed like Lot's soul was when he was in Sodom and Gomorrah. He saw so much sins that his soul was vexed, which means that his standards were lowered. Because as you'll notice, his 2 daughters were given to men, yet they lived in his household, and they were still virgins. So what kind of men took his daughters and didn't have sex with them to procreate? Did he turn these over to men that didn't want nothing to do with them except to name only? What's going on here? Standards were changed. This is how we're seeing this as in Quell. He is passively doing this. And this is something he's causing to be done. But it's not intensely like in killing them. But he's casually getting them. That's how this verse was written. Pay attention. Pay attention to how the media and everything is taking away your righteousness, your holiness, your standards, your morals. That's how the devil and his tools are getting Christians. So he is getting them passively here. That's happening today. I've seen it. I've looked at people who leave the TV on when they're using God's name in vain, and other morality issues. And I'm like, doesn't that bother you? Why are you still watching it? Don't you know that you're not supposed to be putting that into your mind, let alone watching it? Things to think about. And we're going to go further into this. Please remember to hit the ads that you see when they come up on my channel so I can pay a stipend. I make about just over $300 a month. It helps because I'm putting time into this. Also, keep me in prayer. I become a vegan, as you have seen, to help try to reverse my plaque buildup and my heart disease. So I'll be around to finish this Bible, verse by verse, as I can, with the commentaries to help you understand your Bible and you make up your own mind. God bless.